A warm welcome to you wherever it is you're joining us from around the world. This is Enterprise Morning on Enterprise TV. I am Henry Igwebike. In a bit, we'll be going to our newspaper headlines to see what they have for us, and after that will be our main conversation for today. So while we get everything produced for your information, I would love you to please do visit our website at www.enterprisetvnews.com, and also like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV 7. With me in the studios to make sense of our newspaper headline reviews today is the barrister Jide Ologo. He is a barrister at law and also a public affairs analyst. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so very much for having you. So before we get into the newspaper headlines proper, I would love us to maybe take a little jab on a very key, important discourse that is making rounds in our new media and also our traditional media. Of course, that borders around the Nigerian Labour Congress demanding 1 million naira as minimum wage from the federal government. So what do you think? Do you think the Nigerian Labour Congress are shooting beyond the skies, or is it trying to pull the legs of the federal government in that particular case?
You know, according to the president of NLC, that demand is driven by cost reflection. If you look at the cost of living in Nigeria right now, the cost of inflation, the exchange rate, and everything, then you may want to say if there should be compliance with Section 16 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that stipulates that the government should provide reasonable living minimum wage. Then maybe you look at 1 million. But on the flip side, the government that struggles to pay
33,000
minimum wage, how will that government be able to pay 1 million naira minimum wage? So that is why it may appear like a jamboree just to dance around. And then, you know, I wish them the best, but indeed, we're in a very serious situation because even the minimum wage of 30,000 is expected to expire by virtue of the statutory review that should be given this year, the first quarter of this year. So where do we go from here? And that's why I said when the government constituted the committee to review, that it's one thing to review and make recommendations. It's another thing to have the capacity to implement the recommendations. And I'm very sure that the government is far away from having the capacity to implement 1 million naira minimum wage in Nigeria, because that is the minimum wage. So by the time you begin to, you know, go to the other cadres, how are you going to cope? How would the states come in? So we still have a long way to go. And I think the basic concern I have now is how can we embark on a sustainable development redirection for the nation, to deal with the foundational issues that have brought us to where we are right now, that we revive the economy, make us buoyant as a people, drive down the cost of living. And it's all about good governance and resourceful management of our resources, but that appears not to be on the table right now.
Exactly, because the reason why the Labour are actually forcing for such a humongous amount is simply because of the lack of liquidity in our economy. You know, the catch phrase, subsidy is gone, started the avalanche that has gotten us to where we are today. And with that, the little take home for most workers right now is taken out. It's no longer there at all. So don't you think it's of course, just like you did say, is reasonable, but the ability of our federal government to allow that and state government also to allow that work is an issue. But do you think there is a strong intention by the government itself to ensure that there is enough liquidity by making sure that workers get what they are due with respect to inflation in Nigeria?
It's really about liquidity. Money is available in the
But
country.
not in the hands of people who should
Exactly.
encourage.
So it's rather a function of priority. You see, the government came out to announce the trillions of naira that got saved from the
Subsidy removal. Yeah.
Where's the money? We've been reading about billions of naira misappropriated by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and poverty alleviation. We've been reading about the scam of central banks. So I think it's more or less a function of corruption. And again, it rides against the spirit of our constitution. Because what the constitution says in that same section 16 of Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended is that the economy should be managed in a way that wealth is not concentrated in the hands of a few, and that the economy is self-reliant. So we've gone borrowing. Look at the oil and gas sector. Even the Dangote refinery has approached the US to buy crude oil because we cannot even provide. In fact, it will shock you to know that we have mortgaged the future of our resources in advance. We have contracted these things out. So it's all about wicked governance, which is worse than bad governance.
Exactly.
You see, and that is why the nation has been thrown into poverty, talking about the generality of the citizens. But those who are wealthy are so wealthy they can set up a whole nation if they decide to. And that is, again, against the spirit of Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that says that the state shall abolish corrupt practice and abuse of office. I mean, one of the reasons given for not being able to supply Dangote refineries effectively is the issue of oil theft. Who are the oil thieves?
Exactly.
Recently, the federal minister in charge of mineral resources came out to say that powerful people are behind illegal mining in Nigeria. Who are these powerful people? You saw the explosion that took place in Oyo State that exposed. So when you look at all this, I think it's all about our high level of seriousness in maximizing the resources we have to generate common wealth for common good.
Exactly. All right, so quickly let's start off with the Vanguard newspaper and the banner headline, still in consonance with what we started with this morning. Buhari's reckless policies triggered current hardship, and that's finally coming from Sanusi, but most importantly, Adams Oshomole. And on right below that story is an image of a condolence visit by eminent Nigerians to the father of Herbert Wigwe. And below that we have economy. We are almost on the way to Venezuela, coming from PDP governors. And on the top strip of the same newspaper, we have kidnappers from Ekiti, Edo, Kogi invading Ondo State, and why federal government should consider 1 million naira as minimum wage, which of course was our status for today. So, Barrister, let's take a look at this issue. Of course, we started with it, and that borders on gross ineptitude of those in authority. Buhari's reckless policies triggered current hardship. But finally, what is amazing to me right now is the fact that it's coming from no other person but Oshomole. Do you think the issue of being hypocritical when it comes to loyalty is a problem for those in authority?
You said it, and let me add that it's all about docility. The absence of the courage to confront leadership proactively.
True.
So we are always reactive. How many of them could speak to that
at the time
when he was sitting as president? I said it. Obviously, when Abacha was looting this country, some were fully aware of it, but they kept on hailing him. It was after his demise that they are now coming out to speak on both sides of the tongue. We are all in the country, and we are all exposed to the consequences. You see, so I have said it over and over, and I even expected comments like this, that after the Czar has left office, some will now regain their energy to speak. But how can we be proactive? How can we ensure that these things don't go on? How do we have a system that protects the wealth of the nation? I mean, why should an accountant general of the federation have access to 120 billion of natural of our
state
wealth?
resources?
These are issues. Why should governors have access to our money? Their roles are spelled out. You see, so it's like a pilot is flying an aircraft and he leaves the cockpit and begins to pick the bags of passengers from where they are kept and things like that. We need to sit up in this country and look at where we have found ourselves as a people. A country so excellently blessed. And yet stricken by poverty just because of this corruption. There are several, and I said it also when the former president was in office, and you know he came in as Mr. Integrity.
Yeah.
When he leaves office, we read about the atrocities.
And you think possibly we would, see the same thing with Asiwaju Bola Tinubu? Because right now it seems like everyone, including our, those that we respect so much, going to him and making him feel that he's all right. But nobody, just like you said, is proactive.
You find that naturally, but there are two sides to it. If Asiwaju desires to succeed in office, he should shut his doors against the hypocrites.
But how is that possible? Is it ever possible?
He was in touch with the realities.
So what happened?
They formed the fulcrum of his campaign. And so he cannot pretend not to know the problems of Nigeria. You see? And so he even said he should not be pitied. So if he now allows those who will becloud him, like previous leaders, then so be it.
But it's very obvious that, just like you said, his government is porous because, of course, with what we're having right now, and I think it's very important we connect this to the next story here, economy, we are almost on the way to Venezuela, and that is coming from PDP chieftains, and this is true. It means that the government of Asiwaju Bola is porous, and just like you did say, there are lots of people in his ears, and allowing him to do things, and nobody's coming to be proactive about it.
Venezuela is an oil-rich nation that mismanaged her resources, through massive corruption and ended up in below-the-line poverty and hardship. You see, and Nigeria case is similar. But the point I'm making is that if you look at Section 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it vests the executive power to manage the country in the president. So he has that, and you know that when you try to classify powerful presidents in the world, I am of the opinion that the president of Nigeria is more powerful than the president of America when dealing with citizens. The president of America may be considered powerful outside America, but within America he is not. In fact, recently, the home of the president was thoroughly combed.
Donald Trump, that is.
Not Donald Trump.
Who?
Biden.
Joe Biden.
That is there right now. So the system makes leaders accountable.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why Donald Trump could not even return to office.
Okay.
But in Nigeria, our presidents the former president Buhari spent our money to construct railway line to Maradi in Niger Republic. And there were people in the National Assembly, there were ministries and departments. So, and they couldn't do anything to stop it. The same Niger Republic we invested so much in, they have shut their borders against us now. So these are issues. Leadership should be accountable. There should be checks and balances. So if we are moving in the direction of Venezuela, if the president wants his tenure messed up, so be it. If he wants to succeed, I suggest to him, like I did earlier, shut your doors and let what should be done be done. In a serious country, with the Betty Edu gate, some people should already be serving 1 month jail term sentence right now. But you cover all these things up, And you end up with the reinforcement theory in industrial psychology, where this crime gets reinforced. And don't forget, from the Betsy Edu gate, we have links that they have a cartel. So there's a network of how the money flows. And they now start to lobby. So if the president opens his doors to them to come and lobby him, not to implement the laws that will bring peace and prosperity to Nigeria, then it's up to him.
So they said he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. And I'd love us to be proactive right now. Do you think it's fair to say that the president is not coming with clean hands?
I'm not the one to say that, but I know that he has immunity. He cannot be prosecuted while in office. You see, so if he now refuses to implement the laws to succeed in his political promises to the citizens, it's up to him. And by the way, let me go scriptural. The Bible says, if God should mark iniquity, who can stand? You see, so when you talk about clean hands, who really can stand up with clean hands? You know what I'm talking about? So, but you are there for a purpose. Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended says clearly that the security and the welfare of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. And for that purpose, you have been elected to preside over that government and governance system. So if there are those who will sabotage your effort and you are watching them, so be it. How is Paul Kagame succeeding in Rwanda?
In spite
How
of
did
the
Lee Kuan Yew succeed in Singapore as the leader? These are questions. How did John Magufuli turn around the narrative in Tanzania before he passed on? So how, I mean, the leadership of Mauritius, what have they been doing? So what has the leader of Egypt done to have 100% access to electricity
for its people,
the citizens? So these are questions. Look at Nigeria now. Energy, growth, you know, hardship and everything. So if the president wants to just be marrying in Aso Villa and issuing promises, it's up to him.
But of course, it's up to him. But we all know that the citizens are the one really feeling the brunt of the issue.
When the citizens mobilize to embark on revolution, then we know where we are going. And if you go to the 1978 Mexican statement about public relations, it says that it is the art and social science of monitoring trends and predicting their consequences. So as the nation is going now, we can see that we are beginning to have pockets of protest across the land. So when these protests, when things get hotter and people mobilize, how will the government contain it? So the resources we should be spending in sustaining development, we are now spending in mopping up crisis. I mean, that is reactive crisis management in public relations.
Exactly.
You know, and what is desirable is proactive. Manage issues effectively so that they don't degenerate into crisis.
Exactly. All right, so let's move on to the Guardian newspaper this morning, and the banner headline says 113.8 million undocumented Nigerians raise doubt on the population size. And we still have it. NLC pegs wages against Naira depreciation amid calls for urgent action against hardship and hunger in the country. And also we have a CBN informs court of $6.2 million release for 2023 polls that is. So Barrister, let's talk about this issue of undocumented Nigerians. And of course, everyone around the world, they have assumed, or we all know, that our population currently stands at 200 million plus. Even at that, no one has a correct documentation of the real figure that we have. And it's very important for national development. It's important that we understand how many we are in the country so we can understand how to distribute infrastructure and every other thing that aids development in the country. So how do you think it's that we would have a sustainable country in Nigeria when we have lots of undocumented people in the country?
You see, I understand that billions of naira got budgeted for census
Yes.
in Nigeria before the former president left office, and part of which has been spent. It's part of the corruption. Are we really serious about conducting a census? And what does it take, particularly in this age of technology? But then, just like when you talk about the national identity management, it's so traumatic to drive these facilities, and that makes our business environment frustrating. I'm talking about those who have infiltrated the country. If you really do a head count, accurate one, it's likely we're about 300 million human beings in Nigeria now, with more of foreigners. When you look at the terrorism, those who migrated and things like that from the Sahel region. In fact, if you come to a state like Lagos and drive to some locations, you'll be amazed at the population of people you have. Those, some sleeping under the bridge, some just roaming around. So these are issues. But if we want to get serious, the government has strategic mandate. What are we supposed to do in office? Then you now go to the mission. How do we do it? Then you go to the tactics, implementations, and resources are there. Which will amaze you that right now, maybe if you have, something to do with a government office, you get there and they are telling you there's no electricity. And even when they switch on the generator, they tell you there's no paper to make photocopy documents for you. So you keep going up and down. So how serious are we?
Now, talking about how serious are we, do you think all of this is wrapped around an invisible agenda by some of those in authority, to the fact of using that as an advantage to win elections? Because just like you all know, there's this issue of bloating our population in some parts of Nigeria such that we can use it to win elections.
Yeah, but the politicians they are the ones in authority. They've been there. So, like I keep advising them, if you know what you can do to make the system effective, do it. If you don't do it, you may be the victim of that omission somewhere along the line. And so it's up to them. The National Assembly is there to make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good governance of the country. If you look at Section 4 of our Constitution. So, and if they all go there and pretend as if some assignments are not important, then when they come out, they come and confront the consequences. Exactly. You may choose your action, but definitely the consequences
would always there. All right. So lastly, let's go to the Daily Trust newspaper. The banner headline says there's hardship in the land, says a Kano Emir. And the writer there says things will get better. Sorry, that's coming from the president's wife when she visited Kano State. And also it has Nigeria almost becoming Venezuela, just like we had in other news dailies. But let's go to our sub-region. We won't return to ECOWAS. Niger junta leads a vow. Barrister, let's talk about this issue of Niger and those in the Sahel region, saying that there's no need for them being part of ECOWAS any longer. How bad do you think this is, especially with regards to the big brother status of Nigeria?
A wise man said, the only thing that is constant is change. So ECOWAS was brought together to serve a purpose. And before then, there was a status quo. So it changed the landscape of regional relationship. And now, three nations are saying, we are not satisfied with ECOWAS because you have deviated from the ideals of the founding fathers you are not delivering good governance to your citizens, and you are opening the space up to those who come to scavenge, talking about the former colonialists and foreign powers. And the system was weak enough to fall into military intervention. And now these nations are now coming together. That's fine. Military intervention may not be fashionable under democratic dispensation. In fact, there are sanctions against them. They have been suspended. Okay, let's become friends. Let's form our own coalition. So it's a new defining moment in regional interrelationship. And I have said it. ECOWAS should have been proactive. Rather than now going after these nations to say, no, you must return to democracy and things like that, sanctions. How can you put mechanism in place to ensure that leaders care for their citizens by giving them what is meaningful life, developing their communities, you see, which by extension we even prevent or may prevent the military intervention. And these are questions. So when you talk about the position of Nigeria as the big brother, the headquarters of ECOWAS, how is the situation in Nigeria itself? So these are issues. So West Africa needs to wake up. I've said it, about 40% of the total resources in the world are domiciled in Africa. So what is wrong with Africa? What's our problem?
Exactly.
So we are watching, but they are still on the dialogue and things like that. And interestingly, Russia is perceived to be supporting one of the nations. So so you still have the interest of the superpower. So for how long are we going to be stooges to some of this? And that's a big question I leave on the table of ECOWAS.
Exactly. And knowing that sometimes back Morocco, wanted to be part of ECOWAS, but it was refused. Now today, Morocco is already, stretching its hands to the Sahel, telling them, with us, you can access the sea.
That's what I'm saying. That you see, it's a new season.
Exactly. All right, so that's just about the time we have for our newspaper reviews this morning. I'd love to say thank you to Barrister Jide Ologun for being part of our show today, and also would love to oblige that you make it give us your time for our main conversation also, if you may.
I like to say in court,
yes,
the lordship pleases.
Okay. Thank you so very much. So when we return, police raid bandits hideout in Abuja, arrest hundreds, including man claiming to be a DSS operative. Stay with us. In a bit, we'll be back. Please don't go anywhere.
Enterprise TV, a tradition of truth.